Good morning, everybody. This is Grant from State of the Spark, and I am super pumped for today's show. I love Fridays, not because it's the end of the work week. No, that's not why I like Fridays. I like Fridays because there's just a different energy around people. There's a different energy around work. There's a different energy that people are expressing, and it's just a different vibe. Now, I love Mondays because I love beginnings. I love fresh beginnings, but I love today's show because we're going to be talking about crypto, sure, because it's Friday. Mondays are for personal development and focus. Wednesdays are for small business and what's going on. Fridays are for crypto, and not just crypto, but financial freedom and investment. So we're super pumped about that. We got a lot to cover. Not a lot, just a small show, believe it or not. I don't know why I said a lot, but we're going to be covering other news. We're going to be covering what's going on with the most frightening drone I have ever seen. We're going to be covering how to be prepped for opportunity. Right now, the markets are blood red. The TradFi and the DeFi markets have been, over the last few weeks, months, blood red. And what I'm realizing is not everyone's doing now what they said they would do back then. And I want to call that out and actually give you 3 areas that you can actually be working on to prep your mind, to prep your emotions, to prep your money, so that you are actually ready to pull the trigger and move and take action when you said you would. My dude, Billy Waggle. Good morning, Billy. How are you doing, man? I hope you're doing fantastic. Things are moving on our end. This guy is always out there doing it. Good morning. Thanks for checking in. We're going to be covering, are you ready and prepped? The 3 areas that you can be ready and prepped in to do now what you said you'd do then when you were at peak and the market was high and you said, oh, when the market tanks, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Not all of you are doing that. Good morning, Austin. This is my guy, Austin. How you doing? I hope you're doing fantastic this morning. Thanks for checking in. And Austin, let me know, have you been following a little while? I think I've seen your name on my YouTube, but we're going to be talking about how to be ready for these opportunities. And a lot of opportunities right now are happening in crypto. But if you're an opportunist and if you're looking for financial freedom, there's also opportunities in the TradFi markets right now because they're taking a big poo right now. But we're going to be covering the 3 areas on how you can be mentally, emotionally, financially ready. But before that, we're going to be covering other news, what's going on in the markets. We're also going to be covering a crazy ass drone because you know we like to cover other news that enlightens you and gets your head thinking about other stuff. So you should go touch grass so that you're not just locked into the thing that you're always locked into. Oh, Aussie. This is Aussie. I didn't realize, Aussie, you are Austin. I hope I'm not saying your last name wrong. Rickley or Reikley. Aussie has been in our Discord. He has a phenomenal story, has a phenomenal direction. Follow Austin's YouTube or jump in the Discord and read up on Aussie's background of what they're doing with farming, and just a great contributor in our very tiny but friendly community in Discord. I love it. Good morning, Austin. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see you, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. So we're going to be covering a little bit of this stuff this morning, but before any of that, y'all, listen, we're going to be covering Morning Cup of Gratitude. If you get one thing out of today's show, I want to make sure that you bookend your week. You start your week with gratitude. You end your week with gratitude. You start your day with gratitude. You end your day with gratitude. You start your meetings with gratitude, because gratitude unlocks a different framing. You might be down in the mouth. You might be frustrated about something. There might be lots going on, but you don't have to feel what others want you to feel. You could actually bring much more closer to your A game by clicking in man, what am I grateful for here? How do I become a good finder? Bob Proctor spoke into my life and said, how do you become a good finder of a situation? And then you can start getting into a more creative space. You can handle the problems in front of you in a more abundant framing. That's why we're going to start with our morning cup of gratitude. Let's start right away. I am absolutely grateful. We have the tiniest, slowest chat Discord I've ever been in. And we were busier before when we were doing a lot of buy alerts, and then we moved to dollar cost averaging. But Aussie and Austin and the other people, the other people in our Discord have, to me, added very tangible, rich. Mavericks is another person. We're just slow burn. We're in there talking and adding value to each other's lives, and I just love and I'm grateful for that feeling. I'm grateful for this morning cup of coffee, and I'm also grateful that we had a productive week in our businesses, even though I was sick. You can hear me sniff a little bit, but I'm much better now. I'm on the uptrend, and I'm feeling great. I want to hear in the comments below what you're grateful for. Share with the community, share with the audience. If you don't do it here in the public space, then post it in our Discord. Start articulating. And even if no one hears it, if you write it in your journal, if you put it somewhere other than just your brain and write it out, it starts to take shape and manifest. But I encourage you right here in this public space, write down what you're grateful for in the comments below. I want to hear it. I want to know about it so that I can hype you, so that I can lift you up and celebrate with you. That's what makes us friends, man, is when I hear what you're grateful for. Austin shared some big winnings and some mental challenges, or not mental challenges, but like tactical challenges. I assume Austin, it's a he. I forgive me if I'm wrong there, but in what he's facing with his family right now, there's some challenges, but they're awesome challenges. They're good problems. And he was sharing those and getting vulnerable. And there was gratitude of like, look at all this opportunity. And now we're just dealing with the problem of managing it. That's a huge thing to celebrate. What are you celebrating out there? Do let us know. Let's talk about other news. In other news, we're just going to be real quick here. I'm not going to drag this out this morning, but this was one piece of other news. Ooh, and this is more important than other news. Billy jumps in and shares, grateful for mentors he has in his life that he can turn to for help in both business and life. Always grateful to know that he has those in his life who are in similar positions who he can lean on. Now, I know Billy. We've met. We've been friends. I'm overdue for another follow-up meeting with Billy. And he's got a great church community he's been a part of, but I assume he's also talking about these relationships that span spiritual and tactical. So, like, I think some of the people in his circle both are maybe in his church, but also in real estate. He's a real estate investor and a real estate realtor. Awesome person. Grateful for mentors. Thank you for sharing, finding the things we're grateful for. Now, I want to give an example. I don't know what's going on in Billy's life right now in general, good and bad. I don't know the whole thing orbiting him entirely. We haven't touched base truly in a few weeks, but he's grateful for mentors. And here's a living example of, wow, he can turn to these people in both business and life. That must mean he had a situation that he needed to turn to those business and life mentors. My point here is not to call Billy out, but to raise up a principle for you to learn from. This is someone who's become a good finder. They might have the ups and downs of business and life, but they go to their mentors and they can say, good night. I'm navigating this challenge, and I'm also grateful that I have these people to navigate this challenge with. Listen, if you are struggling to find something to be grateful for, you need to jump in the Discord, because you could say, dear Grant, here's our situation. What should I be grateful for? And we'll help you become a truffle hunter good finder, rooting around and finding stuff to be grateful for. In other news, an ingenious underwater drone can transition to flight in less than a second. You know, growing up as a surfer, I'd spend a lot of time in the water and always fantasize what it would be like to be underwater and then to just take flight, to have all this resistance of water and then zero resistance of the sky. Well, in Bihang University in Beijing, they have actually built a 4 quadcopter drone that can navigate underwater. It's sealed, it's safe, its electronics are safe. It can navigate underwater in the craziest way, but as soon as it breaks the surface, its quadcopter rotors extend and it suddenly takes flight. It happens in less than a second. It is insane. Now, the researchers in Bihang University were doing a lot of biomimicry. And in the biomimicry, they were trying to see how this thing could transition to flight, but they also gained other aspects. For example, this copter can be underwater, break the surface and fly, and then attach to the side of a boat or a plane because it has a skin underneath like a suckerfish or like a gecko, where it suckerfishes right onto the side. No glue, no sticky substance, literally just mimicking nature and attaching to the side of a boat. Now, this obviously has some serious military applications. We can see that. Let me drop that link in the comments below. If you nerd out like I nerd out on some of this technology, I've dropped the link there. You can read up more about it. It's very interesting. I'm very interested in the application for interplanetary use. Imagine if you could actually put something like this on the surface of a planet that is either liquid or gaseous, and it could move between states as needed just to explore the universe more. Very cool stuff. Check that out there. Now let's talk about the markets. Let's look at the markets real quick. Boom. We're looking at coin market cap. You can see that Bitcoin is up about 4.5% in the last 24 hours, at least as of this morning. That's actually kind of huge based on its low. You can see its chart here, so it's taken off a little bit. Ethereum is up almost 6%. No, this is not the bull run, bull rally. Love your band. I don't even know. Tammy, what band are we talking about? Let me know. I love your band. I don't have a band, but let's rock and roll. Or maybe you're hearing AC/DC in the background. For those about to rock, we salute you. Yeah, but I got AC/DC playing in the background, but usually you can't hear it. So, Tammy, I'd love to hear what you mean by band because I don't have a band going on, but maybe she's talking about AC/DC. Last but not least, Cardano is up about 5.4%. That's absolutely huge. Now, let's compare this to the TradFi markets. In pre-market, the TradFi market, the Dow is up 0.92%. The S&P is up 1.13%. And the NASDAQ is 1.53%, all in pre-market. In TradFi, those are pretty decent numbers. They're a good sign that today's going to be a little less red, maybe a little more green. And then DeFi markets are looking really strong in pre-market. Now, this isn't financial advice in the least at all whatsoever. But again, we're monitoring this because if you're following this show or if you're following this channel, you know that we're about freedom. You know that we're about igniting lives, inspiring other people, igniting lives of explosive significance. And in order to do that, we've got to be the masters of our own fate financially. So we believe in financial freedom. We believe in entrepreneurship. We believe in intrapreneurship. And we could talk about that some other day. But I share the markets because I want to inoculate you against the fears and the FOMOs and the FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, of the ups and downs of the market. Instead, I'd rather you become inoculated. You understand how it moves. Life is movement, right? If you are not moving long enough, you're going to disintegrate. Am I right? And when something is dead, it's because things aren't moving. When you move, you can actually understand how it moves. I take this from surfing. I grew up surfing on the East Coast. And if you're just sitting there watching the waves go by, it could be interesting. It could be fun, but not nearly as fun as riding the waves. Or if you're out in the water and you're not paddling around, you're in the wrong location, you're going to get pounded by a wave. Or if you're in the wrong location, you're just going to miss the wave. It's in motion and in movement that we catch the wave because we can understand how it's moving. And so I share the markets with you, both the TradFi markets and the DeFi markets, just so that you can inoculate yourself against the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and have a stronger sense of what's going on in the marketplace. So that's your update on the markets this morning and how they're about to open. Who knows what direction it is? We're not making those sorts of predictions, but we are pointing it out because there's opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, wait, hang tight. Tammy says, boom. The noise between each subject, your personal brand. She's talking about my Hey, Tammy. Yeah, man, I have to have transition music and I don't have a sound panel. So I started that long ago. And Dory, a friend of ours, Dory Joseph, who is a realtor and real estate investor, she she said, Grant, I love the music. I was like, I need to get a music panel where I just hit buttons and the music happens. She said, no, I like how you do it. Dun, 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 dun. I don't even know where it comes from. Thank you, Tammy. I appreciate it. Let's talk about Billy says, boom, that's my favorite band. I love you guys, man. This is why I do the show, for the accolades and the love. I'm feeling the love. Tammy says, that's it, man. That's the one. Well, we're talking about the markets today because it's Financial Freedom Friday. We're going to talk about crypto. We're going to talk about real estate. If you catch us in midday, I'm going to be talking to a good friend, Jarrett. Well, I don't believe we're going live. We're going to try to go live with Jarrett. And he has posed a question. Grant, if you had $100,000, would you rather invest it in real estate or Bitcoin? Austin, or as we know him, Aussie, says it adds an amazing extra energy. Well, it's going on in my head anyway, Aussie, so I might as well share it with you when I transition. I appreciate it, man. But it's good transition music too, right? It keeps people's attention. Like if this were a TikTok, I'd have to do something every 2 seconds so that people pay attention. But we're talking about the markets. We're talking about opportunity. I'll be talking about Jarrett today about the pros and cons and trying to come up with a rubric of how you decide if you had 100K, And by 2030, Bitcoin could easily be between 750,000 and $1 million per Bitcoin based on the demand curve. It's a very predictable math equation on the rise in demand and the limited supply. And there's some advantages to that with Bitcoin. And there's no central group manipulating Bitcoin necessarily, though there's some caveats to that. But then there's real estate. What would I rather have? Real estate can produce income, and real estate can be borrowed against. Can you borrow against Bitcoin? So he and I will be talking about that, and that's what we do on Fridays. We try to unpack financial freedom. So I've got like interviews and appointments like all through the midday on some of this stuff as I try to elevate myself, and I'll try to bring you along. If we don't go live, we'll record it and post it. And for those in the Discord, you'll get first notice on all those updates. But today we're talking about a factor of opportunities, and I'll be very brief, and I'll let you get about your day or your evening. Austin, I've always assumed for some reason you were in Australia because you go by Aussie. So it might be night for you. But we're talking about opportunities, and there's a factor that I've seen that goes on quite a bit, especially in the crypto space because it's just transparent. But I assume it also happens in the TradFi space, and it's this. When the market is at all-time highs, and people are getting in because it looks safe. It looks safe because there's red candlesticks across the board. So finally, the friends that you've been talking to, your family who you've been talking to about getting into crypto or getting into a Robinhood investment with Wall Street bets or something that you foresaw, you saw ahead and you said, hey, folks, I want to get you involved. You should get involved. And they're like, no, no, no. Suddenly they see green candlesticks. They see it's on the rise, and then FOMO hits them. FOMO hits them, and it's kind of at an all-time high when Bitcoin was nearing 60,000, and people were like, maybe I'll get in. My family, who I've been talking to Cardano quite a bit, they saw that $1.20, and they're like, maybe it's time to get into Cardano. I've been chasing Cardano since it was 20 cents. I've been holding my Cardano since then, and it rallied nearly $3, and now it's back to 120. But it was on the rise, and they have very short-term memories. They see the recent green, and they say, I want to get in. So they jump in, or they say this, it's a little expensive now. Now, mind you, let's take the Cardano example. My family and friends were like, it's a little expensive now. And I said, well, it's been all the way up to $3. I have a different time perspective. And time perspective, by the way, is a tool of the rich. Know your time perspective, your ability to address something in different time perspectives at will, to see the history of the thing. And we can do this technologically, but also in principle, to be able to look at things in principle at different timelines or time perspectives. But they said, I'm looking at $1.20, let me get in. Now it's down to 50 cents. And what's the joke and what's the meme in crypto? Thanksgiving's going to be a little different this year. Summer vacation's going to be a little different this year because the markets are down so hard. Very difficult time perspectives. But when things are in the green, they say things like, I wish I would have bought when it was lower. Or they see Bored Ape Yacht Club and think, if only I could have gotten in when it was $100. For those who don't know, Bored Apes are going for, I think, a minimum of $300K right now. The floor is something around, or maybe it's something around $200K. I don't know. I'd have to look, but it's expensive. It's a blue chip NFT. They see these NFTs, they see these crypto tokens, or they see AMC. When the Wall Street bets took over AMC, they see it at $150 per share, and they think, man, someone told me about this at $20 a share. If only I could have gotten in when it was lower. If it pulls back 50%, I'll buy in then, is what they say. If it pulls back from $1.20, then I'll buy in. Well, hey, family and friends, Cardano's at 53 cents. Now's that time. Someone says, man, if you could have only purchased Bitcoin at 30K, they said this when it was at 60K, it's at a 50% discount. If Bitcoin could move from 60K down to 30K, I would have gotten in. This is that moment. Are they buying in? This is that moment when Ethereum was approaching 4K. 4,000, and it's down to 2,000. It's at a 50% discount. This is the moment. Now, this is not financial advice. This is personal development advice, because you could apply this to so many things in your life. If the markets crash, I'm going to reinvent myself. If we stay home for the pandemic, gosh, if the apocalypse happens and we're locked in our homes, I'm going to finally get fit. How many of you have sworn to yourself from the perspective of the peak that if it pulled back just a little bit, you would make time for that one investment. You'd make time for that one book you wanted to write or read. You'd make time for that painting you wanted to paint. You'd make time to purchase into that investment. The question is this for today's show: are you prepped, really prepped for opportunity? See, what goes wrong is this. Let's say the Bitcoin example. All of your friends and family were listening to you. You now look like a genius because Bitcoin was sitting at 60K. You've been talking about it. You've been following it. Maybe you have a small bag of Bitcoin or fractions of a Bitcoin. And your family says, "Wow, this is awesome. If it pulled back, I would buy in." Now it's pulled back to 30. You're feeling a little embarrassed. Everyone might have either bought in or held off. Either way, all of you are sitting at 30. It's not just them. It's not just you. And you all have a series of emotions that when you're about to actually pull the trigger, when you're at the marketplace and you're about to click buy, suddenly, no matter how rational you are, and I said this to my good friend Jarrett Carpenter, who is the host of More Than Blockchain podcast. He's the guy we're going to be on a show with today. Fantastic person to follow on Twitter. He and I become fast friends. We get on the phone at least twice a week and are just chatting. And this is a Web3 friend. This is a friend I met in Web3. Love the guy. I've been on a show. He's awesome. Never even met him in person. And he and I were talking, and we said, this is a completely rational purchase, right? People, it would be a no-brainer to purchase Bitcoin. It's a predictable supply that's very slow burn. It's proof of work, meaning we prove we earn this thing, right? But the demand is skyrocketing by institutions and individuals and lending companies. The demand is outpacing the supply, which means it's a no-brainer, right? And I said, it is a no-brainer. But when people pull the trigger, when people try to click buy, this becomes a completely irrational moment. And that's the moment when you realize you or your family are not prepped for opportunity. You're not prepped mentally. You're not prepped financially. You're not prepped emotionally. When you're at that moment, all these other thoughts flood the brain. Well, what if it goes down further from 30? In fact, the people I listen to are calling, and I'm telling you this is not financial advice. The people I'm listening to are calling for an $18,000 Bitcoin before it rallies again. That's intense. Austin right here. Aussie is a technical trader and watches the technical charts and has a lot of input and is watching for a $20,000 level, a floor in that zone. If it breaks down past 25, I mean, we're watching for it to tank. Now, that's not a big deal for Bitcoin. That would be a big deal in the TradFi markets, but we know how Bitcoin moves, and that's not a big deal, but it's down off of 60. That's you can't ignore that no matter who you are. So when you sit to look at clicking purchase at 30,000, you think these things. Now, if you were investing the family farm, which is a funny metaphor that we use linguistically, but in Austin's case, it's possibly true. When you're looking at betting the farm, this could be a high risk thing. If you're looking at dollar cost averaging, it's not that bad. It mitigates it, but the emotions are still there. So here are the 3 areas I want you to pay attention to. When the markets are good, I want you nurturing these 3 areas. The easiest area to nurture is financial. Let's start there. The first area you need to prep when everything is good. It's going to be hard now, but you have to remember this. When the market starts getting good, when you start seeing green, I want you to start not spreading yourself thin. I want you to start stacking your bags. I want you to prep financially. Marissa and I, the story you've heard many times now, Marissa and I, we had a separate account set aside. It was $5 or $6 grand of its own money that was just sitting there. We kept adding to it, and we were adding to it for when the markets crashed. We weren't adding. It wasn't our emergency account. It wasn't our real estate investment account. It was an account that we had just slowly been adding to for years. We had been adding to it for like 8 years. And it took us that long because we were a poor young couple. We're in a different situation now, right? But we were a poor young couple then, and it took us everything to put that money there. And then when COVID hit, the market tanked, and we looked at each other, and our situation had changed. We had owned real estate, multiple properties of real estate at that point. We had our businesses. We were doing okay. We didn't think about the account much. But the market tanked and hit a 2-year low. And we looked at each other and said, are we living on principle? Are we prepped for opportunity? Are we willing to pull the trigger? And it took us a lot to make that move. But it was because of all the prep we did when the market was at its peak. Financially, the money was there. So the first area I want you to pay attention to is financial. It's relatively easy to keep stacking your bags. If it's 10% of your portfolio, we advised in one scenario that Aussie was facing, we advised, hey, 20% goes aside to this. Just make it a machine. Make it an unemotional machine. I have auto purchases happening on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. I believe Cardano. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano every Wednesday. It makes a purchase for me. Unemotional. I'm trying to prep financially. That's the easiest one. So we won't spend a lot of time there. But you then need to prep emotionally. Now, here's the thing about emotions. The emotions you experience aren't just yours. If you've been married, have a partner, have a lifelong companion, have family, siblings, the emotions you feel are a mixed bag of your native emotions mixed with the emotions of others. How do we borrow the emotions of others? We borrow the emotions of others when they're judging us or when they're heartbroken and losing money. If you advised your family to buy in and they were finally willing to buy in at the peak at 60K and they bought in, my family bought a Cardano at $1.20 and it's at 54 cents. That person, my brother, could see that. And I don't know what he's feeling. In fact, all of what he's feeling against me or for me or about crypto in general. There's so many emotions. And now I'm also projecting those emotions because I want to nurture that friendship and relationship with my brother. I don't want to ruin it. Emotions are fluid. You could call them energy. Yes, they're mine. Yes, they're projections. So they are still mine. And I need to take ownership of that. But if we care about the people around us, we're going to have a swirl of emotions. So financial is completely outside of you. Emotional is bridging inside and outside of you. How do you prep emotionally? You have reasonable conversations. You say NFA, not financial advice. You say, this is what I'm doing. You say, don't get involved in this investment unless we're going to be good no matter what happens. Have transparent, upfront, articulate communications with the people around you. And that's not just if they're investing. If your spouse, a partner, kids, you got to have these conversations ahead of time. Honey, I'm thinking about purchasing these NFTs. They could go to zero. I'm thinking about purchasing these tokens. They could go to zero. Are you okay with me doing this? And if they're not, invest elsewhere, friend. Because the only way to prep emotionally, you have to prep internally, sure, but the only way to prep internally when it comes to emotions is to prep the people around you who will affect the way you invest. What if your family panicked at 30K in Bitcoin and said, I want you to pull out? What if you're pulling out at a loss? What if your dollar cost average is 35,000? I started buying Bitcoin at $800, right? And I sold it at about $2,000 thinking I was a genius. And I've been dollar cost averaging back in since. And I think my dollar cost average is still really low. I think it's like 16,000 is my dollar cost average. But what if we've been stacking a lot of bags because it was at 60 and we stacked bags the last time it was at 30 and our dollar cost average was at 35. And families saw that and said, hey, we need this to purchase the house. I need you to sell. That's going to mess with your emotions. You got to have these conversations so far ahead of time. The only way to prep emotionally. Now, Grant, this is all an internal game. Nope, that's prepping mentally, and that's different. Prepping emotionally, you have to admit that you have soul ties, energy ties, relational and emotional ties with the people around you. The only way to deal with this is to deal with the emotions ahead of time. So when the market is good and they're being bold and they're like, go for it, you need to calm them down and say, well, because I know how this moves, because I watch the Spark Show, because I'm in the Discord, because I talk to people and follow people that really follow this thing, this could go as low as 20, honey. Are we willing to continue to dollar cost average in? Here's what I'm doing to mitigate that. But the reason I'm having this conversation is so that when the shit hits the fan, when the market's blood red, we're going to be prepped to buy in, not bail out. Now, that's not financial advice. I mean that about other things in your life. If you said you wanted to pivot to being a Web3 coder and you've never done coding before, honey, when the market falls apart, I'm going to quit my job and do X. I'm talking about buying into your own dream, buying into your own goal, or buying into your own investments instead of bailing out. Prep financially, prep emotionally, lastly. Prep mentally. This is completely up to you. because not everyone will prep mentally. You might have these preliminary conversations, but their emotions will likely be across the board. They'll be high one day, low the next. How do you prep mentally? Visualize the scenarios you might face. I was going to say worst case scenarios, but it's not just worst case scenarios. Visualize success. I can't tell you how many people achieve their goal and completely flake out. Tony Robbins is very famous for having become a millionaire before the age of 20 and then flaking out because it was his first real success. He had been on the street virtually. He had gained success by working hard and doing what he was doing, and then he lost everything at 20. He just didn't show up to meetings. He flaked out. He would sit in hotel rooms and eat Cheetos and get overweight because he just could not handle success, the pressures of success, the responsibilities of success. Aussie right now he's having a lot of things go on in his life that are really actually good. You could consider them success because they're happening to him in waves at a pace that he didn't expect. He didn't expect all this success, but it's happening. Now, he's handling it well. He's going to his advisors, but not everyone handles it well. They might burn out. I've had moments of pure success where I didn't know what to do with the new financial freedom, the new time freedom. And so I overate. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped doing the things I love, and I kind of lost myself. The transition to the new plateau, the level up, is actually often harder than the transition from being nowhere and starting. A lot of people are used to starting from nothing. So when they start to see success, they don't know how to handle themselves. So they actually self-sabotage, cause themselves to fail because they know how to start from nothing. How do you prep mentally? You spend time visualizing success. You spend time visualizing how you'll respond in the midst of failure and how you can smile through it, what your strategies will be, the conversations you'll have. Yes, I mean, sit down, make time, turn off Twitter, turn off TikTok, turn off the market, sit down, turn the lights off, meditate for 5 minutes just to get your head sorted. And then actually visualize the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how you're going to hold your head up high and navigate through that thing. How you're going to handle yourself when the market tanks, and then how you're going to handle yourself when it's time to buy in. Are you prepped mentally? Are you prepped financially? Are you prepped emotionally for opportunity when it arises so that you pull the trigger you said you'd pull? Jarrett Carpenter said this on a phone call this week. My buddy, he said, Grant, I am amazed at how many people are not jumping in when they said they would when Bitcoin was at 60. That was the inspiration for the show today. Because that conversation, I cannot tell you how often it happens that small business owners say, when the market changes like this, I'm going to do that. When the market tanks like this, I'm going to buy in. If my job shifts like this, I'm going to do this. If I hit a certain weight, I'm going to get my focus on fitness. Now is that time. Whatever that thing is, let me encourage you, take action on it. But if you still find that you're not ready, prep yourself financially, put money away when times are good, not when times are bad. Put money away when times are good. Prep emotionally. Have conversations with the stakeholders in your lives. You might not have many. That's okay. Have that conversation. You might have a ton. Have those conversations. Let them know, hey, if this happens, I need you to support me because I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Can you handle that? What will your emotions be? Try to get them to do the third step with you. And that's prepping mentally, going internal, visualizing the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how you're going to hold your head up high. You're going to stay positive, and you're going to pull the trigger because you're a warrior. That is what you do. You deliver for people because that is what you do. You become the leader because you become the trigger puller in your investments and your opportunities because that is what you do. That is who you are. Why do we talk about this? Why do we talk about this on a Friday? What are we doing talking about crypto and talking about trading? What are we doing talking about personal development and holding our head up high and being that person for other people? What we're doing is executing the mission. And if you don't do anything today, if you don't follow any of this advice today, I want you to remember one thing. Well, first off, if you want support, join us in our Discord. Things are getting going. And when we launch our NFT Pass, we're going to give them for free, plus some airdrops to our OGs, our old school gangsters, the people that have been involved in that community from the get-go. Aussie's going to be one of them. Eld, Mavericks, the guys and investors, Billy Weigel. And Billy, if you're not in our Discord, please jump in because that's where we're going to have all of our communications. Training yourself to be greedy when the market is scared out of their minds is because you purposely decided to be in a wealth mindset. And this is from the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett. Be greedy when others are scared. Be scared when others are bold, right? That is a mantra. Basically, become a contrarian. It becomes because you have decided to be in a wealth mindset from early on, not just wealth, but freedom. So if you want support like this, if you want to continue this conversation or conversations like it, if you want to get the opportunities of our patrons get, be in our Discord, because as we unfold, and we are not moving quickly, and that's by intention because we want to do it right and we want to do it well. And we're trying to get the team together. We're trying to get the developers together. We're trying to get the finances together to launch our NFT Pass. This is going to be an investment group, but ultimately it's going to be a launch group where we launch builders. We're going to launch and support 10,000 builders. That's our vision. Why are we talking about any of this? Because the world needs what you have. The world needs your positivity. The world needs your strength. The world needs your wisdom. The world needs your resources. The world needs your gifts. And we're here to support this. This is what we're doing in the Discord. This is why we do the show. So no matter what you do today, I want you to remember the mission: igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own.